the things that are on people's minds is my growth going to be considered here? Am I growing as a technology grows? How is technology being used, right? How is it going to continue being used? Am I going to be treated fairly?
And how are you bringing me along? How are you bringing
How
me
are you
along?
bringing me along? Exactly.
Yeah. Hello, Z.
Hey,
How's
sis.
Good to see you.
Good to see
Thanks
you
for
too.
joining. This is the second episode of Ask the Employer Brand Expert. And I'm so happy to have you join. For listeners, we wanted to set up a series to answer some of what we get as the most commonly asked questions when it comes to employer brand and culture. And we thought it would be really great for you to get to know the incredible talent on our team. Today we have Zishan Merchant with us, who is the head of our consulting practice. Z, do you want to give just a very quick background on what you bring to the table, your experience?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my background is a blend of marketing, consulting roles. Then I pivoted to HR leadership, and then found that sweet spot in what we do at Blue Ivy in the world of culture and employer brand consulting. So I've been doing this many years now. And at Blue Ivy, it's really like what I'm most passionate about and what I try to support organizations with is just how are they showing up? How are they showing up? How are they trying to build trust with talent um, in a way that feels authentic, right? And especially at times of change and transformation like we're going through right now. And obviously, AI is at the heart of that at this point. So there's a lot of work we do around that right now, right? Helping organizations navigate through that, and also making sure that how they're showing up externally reflects the internal experience as well. That leaders are showing up in the same way that the organizational communication is. So, yeah.
So, Z, I know it's a topic that everyone is discussing. So I love that you suggested that we should talk a little bit about how AI is, fundamentally changing how we think of the future of work, of culture, of employer brand. So thank you for bringing today's topic to the table. Um, can you talk a little bit about how, like, jumping right into it, the number one issue right now is leadership, um, engagement, leadership turnover, leadership. We can see clear, direct path to performance in an organization, starting very much at the top, centered at the top. How do you think AI is going to fundamentally change leadership?
Yeah, in so many ways, right? I think just to kind of think about that for a moment, it's obviously over the past couple of years, there's understandably so a lot of excitement, anxiety, all kinds of emotions, right? About AI and its implications. Um, and it's impacting obviously it's a lot of organizations are looking at it in terms of okay, this is going to help us, like if help our efficiency, help our effectiveness, help us do things better, which is all true. But I think the real kind of opportunity here is what it means for leaders, right? If obviously AI is going to keep maybe optimizing, and it will optimize workflows, output, processes, and so what it means for leaders is just this opportunity to keep augmenting human potential within their teams. Um, Bring out those human skills within themselves as well as within the people they work with. So how do you cultivate that potential? How do you become coaches at the same time as well as leaders, right? So it is changing the role of a leader. It is about how do you again just keep cultivating those skills within an organizations that are more focused on that those human skills. So that's what I see, and it means so many things as well when it comes to, like, I was just a few days back I came across a few stats which I've kind of listed here where there is a trust conundrum at the same time as well. And what I mean by that is we know AI usage overall is increasing. But there were stats by Deloitte that I just came across where it spoke about how year on year AI usage within organizations has actually gone down by 10%. These are how employees are using it and how often they're using it. But they're using their work given, their employer given AI tools less. They're using their own personal tools more, right? And that tells me that there is a little bit of a trust disconnection. Um, there's a 33% reduction in AI trust. That's a big number, right? And that goes hand in hand with uh, AI usage reduction in workplaces. So, and you know who's actually driving the AI usage less, like who are actually contributing to less usage are the leaders. They're actually the ones who are replacing work AI tools with their own AI tools. So it's a top down kind of AI trust disconnection. And so trust is so key. And again, leaders are the carriers of that trust, right? So it does start with them. They need to build, or organizations need to gain their trust as well at the same time. And then in turn, leaders are responsible for building trust within their teams. And we know across the board that trust is falling, not just in organizations, but in all institutions, right? You just have to see Edelman's trust barometer reports, which speak about how trust is falling across, be it governments, be it businesses, uh, be it organizations. So I think that's at the heart of it, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you think of that, just listening to those stats. Like, we know for a fact from all of the work that we do, from all of the conferences that we attend, that like number one challenge organizations are facing right now is that transformation to an AI embedded organization. But as you mentioned, trust in AI is low, extremely low. I was listening to a podcast last week that said that it is the worst PR in history, which it is really interesting. Every time a new release comes out, there's also all of the threats to the end of careers, the end of the world as we
Mm.
know it with each new release. But that the trust in AI, I think, is below even like ICE agents. It actually is below that. And here we have leaders trying to get everyone to adopt it, learn how to use it at the same time, as you said, all-time low in trust in leadership. I think, that Edelman also talks to the fact that it's not even just that I don't trust my leader, but that I think my leader may be actively deceiving me. So when
Wow.
you mention that about, people, I didn't know that stat about people actually using their own tools because they don't wanna train, the company tools. How fascinating and scary from a governance perspective. But that's a big task for leaders.
Yeah, and as I said, it does, like, I do empathize as well. Like, there's so much that they're trying to decipher, right? I mean, AI is changing every day, right? So it's like
Mhm,
nobody has like the solution, but what it means is how do you create an environment, create a culture that
mm,
is okay with a bit of ambiguity, but we have to cultivate that trust, right?
yeah,
It means
yeah,
that how are you what's the narrative you're telling people about AI? What is the
yeah,
how are you setting the intention behind AI usage, right? What is that intention? And being very clear and transparent about that. And obviously the leaders need that from their board, and because there is pressure there, and then cascade it through their teams. Um so I empathize, but we don't it's about also just understanding that we may not have, it's okay to not have all the solutions right now. We're in this messy phase, probably,
mm,
right? While we're
mm,
still figuring things out of all its implications, right? We see so much in the news about, oh, let's not release this model yet, right? So, how do you create an environment where you are garnering that trust with people, but also just making sure that you are that there's a sense of we are in this together, right? We are figuring it out together. So it does mean so many things when it comes to how you're communicating the usage of AI. Is it responsible? Is it ethical use, right? Are you being clear about how you're making decisions? Which models are you using? Are they, what are those models that are being used for those decisions? Are you being clear about that? Are you trying to minimize bias, right? Because so it brings up that whole thing again. It comes up to communication, intention, and transparency.
Getting on that, layering on the leadership trust. I think you and I were talking about this a week or so ago with Jack Dorsey's announcement of the restructuring of a significant chunk of his workforce, and then the manifesto that he released, which is pretty astounding. In that what he is really challenging is that org structure that McKinsey had initiated years and years ago, of that top down hierarchical type of an org structure. He believes that he'd like to test the removal of much of middle management, because he
Hmm.
sees middle management as the carriers of information. But when you talk about that humanity, you talk about that trust and what the new demand will be on workplaces to cultivate, because all human jobs aren't going away, not anytime soon. I think I saw McKinsey had it well planned into well beyond my lifetime, where it's before it's all kind of operating in an AI world. So what are your thoughts on that, and how does employer brand, well, let's get to the employer
Hmm.
brand piece. How does employer brand and EVP help to make sure that this humanity is connected if it's not carried by managers?
Yeah. So yeah, this it brings up a couple of things for me. I think one thing that's being uncovered more and more is if there are no managers, for example, right? Or organizations are reducing that layer. One thing that's being uncovered is that in a lot of organizations, people's workload, you'll see studies that say workload is reducing. You'll see studies that say workload is increasing. But something that's coming up more and more is this whole theme of like AI brain fry, right? Or work slop, which is basically it still needs people still need to actively kind of manage the AI output, right? It's not perfect. We know that, right? It needs active management, and in a lot of roles, maybe not all roles, but in a lot of roles, workload is increasing. That whole and what they mean by AI brain fry is that there's a cognitive load there, right, to manage AI output as well. So I think that's something to be mindful of.
Yes,
If is
absolutely. Huge risk. Was it that the further like really amplified with the war in Iran and the
mm,
bombing of the girls' school? I understand that that was AI induced error,
wow, yeah,
where I guess it had been years and years ago, more of a military site from check some of the facts on my story, but this is what I did read, and that because it was older, like you said, like AI does need human in the loop. It does need to check because there is that fry, and when you're working at an important pace, it's really really important to have that leadership oversight. Like that has to happen for protection of organizational risk, at the very least.
and that sense of accountability,
Yeah,
that's it still needs that. People still want that. Like that is part of like a responsible AI framework is human accountability.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
it's
funny, every organization is rebranding that they're human at this particular moment. Uh,
exactly, yeah.
yeah. So when you think about the work of an EVP historically, I mean, certainly the last, few years when we had the great resignation and growth, EVP was really working hard at talent attraction.
Mhm.
It's where it was really being exercised. Now, in this world where, like you said, transformation is happening at an incredible pace, trust is at an all time low. We need to get usage, but we need to protect the humanity and the belonging. What's the new role of EVP and employer brands to get that done?
Well, we term EVP increasingly more as a human contract. It is that exchange, but it's also that commitment, that promise on usually, historically, EVP has always been about the why join, why stay, why recommend, which is still true, but it has to go a bit deeper and acknowledge current realities, right? The things that are on people's minds is my is my growth going to be considered here? Am I growing as a technology grows? How is technology being used, right? How is it going to continue being used? Am I going to be treated fairly? Um, and so it's got to answer those questions. How is AI governance? Who's on the
And how are
governing
you
table?
bringing me along? How are you bringing
How
me
are you
along?
bringing me along?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because there's also this increasing disconnect. I mean, I was just speaking to a CHRO this week, and they were mentioning to me how often when they get directions from the board, it does feel a little disconnected from day-to-day realities, right? It's this lofty vision which we might hear on the news, right, about its potential. Who are the people actually doing the work? Are you involving them? Because with how quick the models are evolving and adapting, they have to be brought along. The people have to be brought along. The talent has to be part of this journey. So, how is that being? Is that part of the employer brand narrative, right? Because that's what sets the intention. That's what sets the tone, right? Of the usage of technology now in the future, as it keeps evolving. How is my role going to keep evolving or not? How is my career path going to look? Because we know career paths are going to keep looking different, right? So, what does that mean for me? How are my skills going to be used, and how are my skills going to be continue to be evolving? So, there's organizations want AI usage in their companies, but the people don't feel ready, right? If you ask, and there was a YouGov survey which said that only 1 in 3 leaders actually report having mature upskilling programs for AI. Less than half say they have any basic AI literacy programs in place. So you have this lofty vision, but only a third are actually doing something, or at least they state that they're doing something more than just fundamentals or
Yeah.
foundational upskilling
Yeah.
programs about it.
Yeah.
So there's a gap there that needs to be closed, and your EVP needs to needs to talk about, acknowledge that, and acknowledge the roadmap. Because again, it's not just we always maybe used to think of in the past about EVP facts. This is current reality. This is what we offer, right? But I think increasingly we're going to see acknowledgement of we don't know everything right now, but this is our path. This is
Mm.
our direction.
Yeah. I think this moment in time and to me is very much like when we were hit a few years ago with the need to address your commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging in your EVP. And we worked with so many organizations to make sure that their EVP pillars really spoke to what we coined the diversity value proposition. And today I think our organizations are facing the same thing with some urgency, as you mentioned, that the commitment to AI and what that means to talent needs to be a pillar that is addressed. Whatever your stance may be, it needs to be in there, and what that means to talent, because it is something that really matters. And it's also going to steer some of that governance board discussion around how are we investing in this training, reskilling,
Mhm.
adaptation of our workforce, because that will be probably the number one contributor to trust in willingness to transform and engage if they see that they are also transforming at the same time that the organization is adapting to an AI workplace. So that was a really great call out.
That is a bit of a risk with AI, right? It can risk they're being like losing the human connection, right?
Mm.
When if you're collaborating with tools more than you are with human beings, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's something to be super cognizant about, right?
And the reality with AI is that's also happening. At the same time, you're trying to work it internally, externally, the markets are watching and communicating across all of the AI platforms what you stand for. Are you human? Are you inclusive? Are you really building something for the world together? Or is this just becoming a very automated organization? I cannot imagine, despite all of the doom and gloom stories, I cannot imagine a world that A means there's less work.
Hmm.
Every innovation seems to 10x the amount of work that is available, and I cannot imagine a world where humans are not fully involved because psychologically we buy with emotion. Psychologically we engage and are loyal with emotion, and that emotion is so deeply human. When I listen to the idea of governance, like you just mentioned this on on how we're connecting with people and making them feel that they belong. That with governance with AI, it's not going to be just the words. So EVP is so often articulated with great copy and proof points, but that this point about governance that you mentioned, the EVP now needs to work a layer or five deeper to give these like if then scenarios so that you are living your promises and helping AI to make those right communication choices between the machine and your
Hmm.
teams. And maybe you've got freelancers working there, but it needs to do double down on a lot more in the next few years.
Yeah, 100%. I think, as I said, the system is being built, refined every day, and there needs to be an equal role for everyone involved, right? Whoever's using it on a day-to-day basis as well. And I think, ultimately, I think it's about the organizations that there's so much amazing potential here, right? Nobody denies that, right? And I think in our world, the organizations that truly use AI to augment human capabilities, they're the ones who are going to differentiate and stand out in this world, within employers, in the talent brand landscape, and encouraging those behaviors that are going to be even more important in the future. So it's AI for sure will keep impacting how we work, but I think leadership will determine how that feels, right? I think that's the whole thing. We started by talking about trust. That is the big opportunity here. When
Yeah,
things are going downhill, we're seeing that it's because there's this disconnection, right? So
yeah, yeah,
how do you bring that back? How do we connect?
yeah, yeah. What do you think this means for CHROs, for talent leaders on where they need to focus right now?
This is a topic that it requires a different mindset. It requires a different perspective of you don't need to have all the answers right away, but how you bring people along the journey, how you communicate that, where you're making the investments, right? And what your narrative around that investment is. I think that's something that's crucial, right? And just think of that. Think of the narrative. Think of building it, and being okay with ambiguity. And you're not on an island here. You shouldn't be, because nobody has all the answers in this moment in time. The EVP can play such a huge role in crafting that narrative, right? It sets the foundation. So think of if you've built that foundation, if you've, or are you just letting things happen as they are, right? But I think you need that anchor. You need something for people to revolve around, and that's how we treat an EVP, as that anchor.
Yeah. I think measurement is also so important right now
Mm-hmm.
with the fear of leadership and humanity being pulled, employee value proposition, living your values, behaviors, all of that being pulled from the core conversation, whether you're at the board or looking at the P&L as you're making this change. And why right now is the time to be always on measuring. That once a year engagement survey is not going to help you with what the pace of the shifts that are happening right now. And yeah, that measurement of the employer brand must be added to the toolkit for success in the next 12 to 24 months.
And I think that sentiment, to your point, we need to add in that layer of um, what are people saying about us, not just overall, but about how we're evolving? What's how are we changing? How is this organization adapting, or how they're using technology, how they're using AI? That needs very close attention to, right? And even internally, like we spoke about measurement, what you measure matters, right? And so it comes on to what are you measuring, just productivity, efficiencies, which is great, but are you also measuring trust? Are you also measuring belonging? Because we know that can fall to the wayside potentially, right? Are you measuring the connection between talent and customer sentiment, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're using AI across the board, now more than ever, you need to keep pulse and use AI to keep a pulse, right? And so that's using it in the right ways as well.
Yeah, or plug using Blue Ivy's big, edge.
Use it.
Um,
Come over.
I thank you. Like, so many incredible insights, today. Any other last things? Like, I love this idea of don't measure for productivity anymore, measure for performance, because there's so much performance to unlock right now with these tools. Anything else?
Yeah, I just like measure the hard metrics for sure, but not in isolation, right? It's okay to measure productivity, performance, but like just layer it in, right? Just not in isolation. It is because that's short term potentially, but this is the long term game we're playing, right? And because it's not going away. And again, with the evolution, you need to balance both, because ultimately it's you you still need people. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. For employer brand leaders, TA, and the CHROs that you work with, this feels like a very exciting moment. Challenging, but really exciting. Any vision of what you think the world of work is going to look like in the next
Whew.
2 years?
Impossible to tell, isn't it? It's I
Yeah,
don't think anyone has that foresight right now, but it's again, it just goes back to even we may not know what it looks like in 2 years, but what we can control is right now, right? The today, the tomorrow, how you're showing up, what behaviors you're leading with, what you're measuring, what potential are you seeing in technology as well as in your people, and that should go hand in hand. Um, and I think just it will lean on a bit of resilience, organizational resilience, personal resilience. I think it's easy to get distracted, heavily distracted every day. There's new news. You might want to, keep switching one day to the next. But, and obviously it's important to have a pulse on the changes, but, have your North Star still there, right? That should remain, right? While you might be making micro changes, obviously, but don't lose the long term vision of why you're doing the work that you do, right? Why you're in the business that you are in.
perfectly said for our Zen leader and advisor. Appreciate all of your thoughts today. Really insightful.
Thanks for having me, Stace.